guys, I wanted to go over the questions for Study Guide Quiz 2.2b so that you won't be surprised when you take the quiz next time. So, starting with question 1. The histograms below describe the values taken by 3 sample statistics in several hundred samples from the same population. The true value of the population parameter is marked on each histogram. So, you can see where the parameter is marked. They marked it underneath here. And remember, parameter is to the population what the statistic is to the sample. And I remember it P and P and S, and that was in one of the previous videos. You can go back and watch if you need to. So question A says, compare the variability of these 3 estimates. So I just simply said histogram A has the least amount of variability, and you can tell that that's the case because if the parameter is here, the farthest away that you get from that parameter is a lot closer than here. It gets farther away on each side, and here it gets farther away on each side. And C has a lot more data on this side, so it's a little bit skewed. So the answer to question B, based on the performance of these 3 statistics in many samples, which would be the worst job of estimating the parameter, I put histogram C because the amount of data points to the left of the parameter would skew the data. So just like I was talking about for question A, that was the answer for question B, because all of that data is on the left-hand side of the parameter here. That's going to give you a skewed view of what's happening. Question 2, a random sample of 1,000 adult residents of Colorado is taken to estimate the percentage that favor a raise in minimum wage. The sampled residents were fairly evenly split on the subject, and the margin of error in a 95% confidence interval is properly estimated to be about 3%. The population of Delaware is about only 1/5 as big as the population of Colorado. A random sample of 1,000 adult residents of Delaware is taken, and the percentage favoring a raise in the minimum wage was about the same as the percentage in the Colorado poll, with the margin of error in a 95% confidence interval for the percentage of all adult residents of Delaware who favor a raise in the minimum wage be much smaller than 3%, also about 3%, or much larger than 3%. Pick one and explain briefly. And don't forget to explain. But you have 3 choices, so it's going to be one of these. It's going to be smaller, about, or much larger than 3%. And remember, the number for Colorado, the margin of error was also 3%. And the way you think about this, when we were practicing in class doing the margin of error, the formula for margin of error was 1 divided by the square root of n, where n was the sample size. Okay? Now, even though the population of Delaware is a lot smaller than the population of Colorado, they both used a sample size of 1,000. Okay? And that's going to give you your 95% confidence interval because this particular formula for margin of error was created to have a confidence of 95%. So let's just put that in there and make sure that, here's our calculator here, and let's make sure that that comes out to 3% again. So if we take 1 divided by the square root of 1,000, oops, this calculator may not give me the correct answer because it's not a scientific calculator. So if we take the square root of 1,000, okay, and then so 1 divided by approximately 31.6, we do 1 divided by 31.6. Okay, we do get about 3%, which is the same as above. So because the sample sizes are the same, that margin of error is going to stay the same, even though the population sizes aren't the same. All right? There is a backside to this quiz. So question 3. A national sample survey interviewed 3,800 people aged 18 and older nationwide by telephone. One question asked was whether they agreed with the statement, "Some people say we should have a third major political party in this country in addition to Democrats and Republicans." 53% of the people asked agreed that we should have a third party. Identify the population, the parameter, the sample, and the statistic in this setting. So remember, the two S's, the sample and the statistic, go together, and the two P's, the population and the parameter, go together. So if you look back in here, the sample size is obviously 3,800 people. 18 or older nationwide. And the population that we're trying to understand is the entire population of the U.S. that is 18 or older. The parameter is going to be the proportion, okay, of, if you take all those statistics and maybe like find an average of those statistics, you would get pretty close to the parameter. But since the parameter in a sample survey is always unknown, because the only known is what the people in the sample say, the parameter is going to be unknown. So the answer that it's looking for is the proportion of the population. Okay, the proportion of population. Here, that's really all you can say about it unless the parameter is given specifically. The statistic in the sample was the actual number that they got, which was 53%. Okay, if you go down to B, use the quick method. This is just what I showed you previously. Use the quick method to estimate the margin of error for conclusions about all people in the nation who are 18 and older with a 95% confidence. And you can see here, I promise I put this into the calculator, 1 divided by the square root of 3,800. Now remember, you have to do the square root of 3,800 first before you do 1 divided by that number. So don't forget to do that, and you get approximately 1.6%. Okay. Question C, make a confidence statement about the percentage of all those 18 or older in the nation who believe we should have a third major political party. So you simply restate, we are 95% confident that the true percentage of people in the U.S., that true percentage is the unknown, that's the parameter, so I put that arrow there, that's the unknown. We are 95% confident that this is going to be the answer, but again, it's unknown unless you're doing a census, okay? So we are 90% confident that the true percentage of people in the U.S. who favor having a third political party is between 51.4% and 54.6%, or you could state it as it is 53% plus or minus a margin of error of 1.6%. Either one of those ways to say it is correct, okay? Or this one. And the way we got these numbers here, 51.4% and 54.6%, was we took the 53% and we added that 1.6 margin of error, and we took the 53% and we subtracted that 1.6 margin of error. So we get between 51.4% and 54.6% if you wanted to state it that way instead. So I think the trickiest part of this quiz is going to be remembering how to write the confidence statements. It's always going to start, we are 95% confident, because we're using This formula right here, 1 divided by the square root of n, it's always going to start that way. And then you have to state what you were looking for. In this one, the true percentage of the entire population who favor having the third political party, that's what we're looking at, is, and then between the actual statistic you got plus or minus the margin of error, or simply state the statistic, which is 53%, and then say plus or minus your margin of error of 1.6%. Either way you want to write that. Remember, when you're looking at parameter, unless it specifically says X amount of the population is this, or like on question number 1, it actually gave you that parameter. The parameter is going to be unknown in a sample survey, right? So the more samples you get, and if you average those like we did before in class and some of those activities, the closer you're going to get to the true parameter. But if you only have samples and statistics, that true parameter is always going to be unknown. You're just going to be able to get close with a margin of error. I hope this helps. Please make sure you watch this before you come in and take the quiz. And I hope you guys have a good evening.